Phantom time. Imagine waking up, checking the date on your phone, and realizing the year you've been living in is a lie. Picture the unsettling feeling that nearly 3 centuries of your documented past simply never existed, that the historical bedrock you stand on is nothing more than a fabricated ghost story. This isn't a thought experiment from a science fiction novel. In 1991, German historian Heribert Illig proposed the phantom time hypothesis, aggressively arguing that the current year is actually somewhere around 1729, not the 21st century. Illig pointed to a glaring, unexplainable scarcity of archaeological evidence from the early Middle Ages, specifically the period between 614 and 911 AD. He suggested that the Holy Roman Emperor Otto Roman III, working in shadowy tandem with Pope Sylvester Roman II, conspired to fabricate nearly 300 years of human history. Why would they orchestrate such a massive deception? Because Otto desperately wanted to rule during the monumental, religiously significant year of 1000 AD. To make the mathematical timeline work in his favor, they simply injected centuries of forged documents, rewritten timelines, and entirely fictional historical figures, possibly even inventing the legendary Emperor Charlemagne himself into the historical record. They didn't just rewrite history. They essentially invented time itself to secure a divine legacy, plunging the world into a chronological matrix that we are still trapped in today. You trust the timeline handed to you. You base your understanding of human progress, the rise and fall of empires, and your own place in the universe on a linear, unbroken progression of dates and events. But if an emperor and a pope could theoretically insert 300 phantom years into the calendar just to satisfy an ego, how secure is your grip on the present? If the foundational dates of our civilization were manipulated by a handful of men with a pen, you have to ask yourself what other monumental lies you accept as everyday reality. And if a glitch in time like this could be masked so effectively for over a millennia, what happens when individuals actively try to intercept a signal from the architects of our reality and pay the ultimate price? The lead mask's case. You're standing on a desolate, rain-swept hill in Brazil, staring down at 2 lifeless bodies hidden in the brush. They are dressed impeccably in sharp, formal suits, covered by waterproof coats, as if arriving for a very important, highly unusual business meeting. But it's their faces that make your blood run absolutely cold. Covering their eyes are crude, heavy masks crafted out of solid lead. In August 1966, the bodies of Manuel Cruz and Miguel Viana were discovered on Vintame Hill. Police cordoned off the area, but the autopsy yielded impossible results. They found no signs of blunt force trauma, no struggle, and toxicology reports revealed no known poisons in their systems. What investigators did find was a cryptic, water-damaged notebook containing a chilling schedule. 16, 30B at the agreed place. 18, 30 swallow capsules, after effect protect metals wait for mask signal. These men weren't victims of a simple murder or a tragic suicide. They were highly intelligent electrical engineers who had painstakingly crafted these lead masks to shield their retinas from intense, blinding radiation. They went to that isolated hill expecting to witness, or perhaps communicate with, a massive, luminous electromagnetic phenomenon, an event so powerful they believed it required heavy metal shielding simply to survive the encounter. They took their unknown capsules, waited for the promised signal, and whatever arrived to meet them, it stopped their hearts instantly without leaving a single physical trace behind. You like to believe that human curiosity has limits, that basic rationality keeps you safe from stepping over the edge. But these men were scientists. They calculated the risk, built the shielding, and willingly stepped into the dark unknown to intercept a signal from outside our accepted reality. When you look up at the night sky, you see empty space, but they saw a matrix waiting to be accessed. Their unexplained deaths suggest that some doors in this reality are locked for a very good reason. But what happens when the Matrix doesn't just target 2 isolated men on a hill, but directly hijacks the minds of tens of thousands of people all at once? Miracle of the sun. You are packed shoulder to shoulder into a muddy field with 70,000 other people, your clothes completely soaked from hours of pouring rain. Suddenly, the heavy clouds break apart. You look up, and the sun, the fixed, burning center of our solar system, begins to violently tear itself across the sky, spinning like a disk of colored fire and plummeting straight toward your fragile human body. This exact scenario happened in October 1917, in Fatima, Portugal. Tens of thousands of witnesses, a massive crowd including hardened skeptics, university professors, and cynical journalists, all reported seeing the exact same impossible physics. They watched in sheer terror as the sun detached from its cosmic anchor, radiating bizarre, kaleidoscopic colors that saturated the landscape, before appearing to crash rapidly toward the Earth. But here is the terrifying catch. Astronomical observatories around the globe recorded absolutely nothing unusual that day. The sun didn't move an inch. So how did 70,000 independent people share the exact same impossible hallucination? Experts point to a massive, unprecedented glitch in collective human perception, driven by extreme psychological expectation and intense optical fatigue from staring directly at the bright, breaking sky. Their brains essentially misfired in unison. It was a localized collapse of consensus reality, a literal software crash in the collective minds of a small city, proving that the human brain can be overridden by the very atmosphere around it. You rely heavily on crowds for validation. If you see something impossible, but thousands of others around you see it too, you automatically accept it as the absolute truth. But the event at Fatima proves that human consciousness can be hacked en masse. If 70,000 individual brains can be simultaneously hijacked by sheer expectation to see the sun physically fall from the sky, how much of your current daily reality is just a shared illusion? You only see what your brain allows you to see. And if our minds can be manipulated this easily, what happens when the very ground beneath your feet decides to rewrite its own rules? Star jelly. You're walking across a damp, open field just before dawn, breathing in the crisp morning air after watching a sky full of heavy meteor showers. Suddenly, you look down and see strange, translucent globs of gelatinous matter scattered across the wet grass, shimmering faintly in the early light. You reach down to touch one, but the moment your warm finger grazes its surface, the substance rapidly and violently evaporates into absolutely nothing, leaving behind only the deeply unsettling feeling that you just made contact with something fundamentally impossible. This bizarre, persistent phenomenon is officially known as star jelly, and it has been terrifying and confusing witnesses dating all the way back to the 14th century. After significant meteor showers, people across the globe have consistently documented finding this mysterious, viscous sludge resting on the Earth. It behaves as if it is completely alien to terrestrial biology. Whenever scientists attempt to carefully analyze it, the substance seems to resist study, breaking down and dissolving almost instantly upon contact. On the rare occasions researchers actually manage to collect a viable sample, modern DNA tests return maddeningly inconclusive results, often matching absolutely nothing in our known biological databases, or simply reading as pure, unidentifiable organic noise. It acts exactly like physical matter entering our atmosphere that flatly refuses to obey the foundational laws of terrestrial chemistry. Some researchers quietly theorize that star jelly might be the physical byproduct of atmospheric entry from outside our solar system, a kind of temporary biological matrix that simply cannot hold its form in our earthly environment. You automatically assume that the material world is permanent, stable, and completely categorizable. If you can see it and touch it, you believe it belongs on our periodic table of elements. But star jelly represents a terrifying, physical loophole in that comfortable logic. It proves that matter from outside, our accepted reality, can briefly manifest right in your own backyard, only to actively delete itself before you can even understand what you are looking at. If literal pieces of the sky are falling and erasing themselves upon human contact, you have to wonder what other alien mechanics are operating undetected right in front of you. And if soft biological anomalies can simply vanish into thin air, what happens when an impossible anomaly is forged into solid, unbreakable stone billions of years, before humanity even existed. The Klerksdorp Spheres. You're standing in a quiet museum, holding a small, incredibly dense metallic object in the palm of your hand. It is perfectly spherical, unnervingly smooth to the touch, and features 3 meticulously carved, perfectly parallel grooves running exactly around its equator. It looks exactly like an intricate, machine-tooled piece of advanced aerospace technology. But then you are handed the terrifying context. The solid rock this object was pulled from is over 3 billion years old. These are the infamous Klerksdorp Spheres, an ongoing, unresolved nightmare for the traditional timeline of Earth's history. Miners originally discovered these bizarre, flawlessly grooved spheres deeply embedded in ancient pyrophyllite deposits in South Africa. Rock formations that predate the existence of any known intelligent life by literally billions of years. Currently housed under heavy glass in the Klerksdorp Museum, these objects look entirely manufactured, completely defying everything you were ever taught in history class. Mainstream geologists are quick to dismiss them as natural concretions, minerals that simply naturally hardened into round shapes under immense pressure. But that desperate explanation completely fails to account for the astonishing mathematical precision of the parallel grooves circling the spheres, a feature that simply does not occur randomly in natural geological formations. The exact formation mechanism remains heavily and bitterly debated, with many independent researchers arguing that these objects are undeniable physical evidence of a highly advanced, pre-human civilization, or perhaps artificial data probes left behind by whoever designed the physical matrix of our reality long before we arrived. You base your entire worldview on the arrogant belief that human beings are the absolute pinnacle of earthly evolution, that we are the first and only intelligent architects to ever walk this planet. But the Klerksdorp Spheres aggressively challenge that biological supremacy. If perfectly manufactured, machine-like objects were buried deep within the Earth 3 billion years ago, your understanding of time and human uniqueness is fundamentally broken. You are forced to confront the terrifying possibility that you are living on a recycled server, a world that has been populated, wiped, and completely reset long before you were ever coded into existence. And if physical evidence of an ancient matrix is buried deep in the dirt, what happens when the very governments that protect you are finally forced to admit that the matrix is still actively operating in the skies above you? May 2026 UAP files. You're staring at a freshly unredacted government document on your glowing monitor, scanning through dry military jargon until a specific paragraph makes your stomach drop. You are looking at official, undeniable proof that the fundamental laws of physics, the very rules that keep your reality glued together, are being casually broken by something operating in our airspace. This is the shocking reality of the May 2026 UAP files. After decades of aggressive denial, the Pentagon recently declassified files detailing anomalous radar data and physical sightings dating all the way back to 1948 over Abilene, Texas. Search the recently declassified May 2026 Abilene radar logs if you want to lose sleep tonight. These official Department of Defense transparency releases confirm physics-defying flight characteristics that simply should not exist. The documents detail metallic objects performing instant 90-degree turns while traveling at Mach 10. According to our understanding of aerodynamics, a maneuver like that should instantly vaporize any craft and tear the surrounding atmosphere to shreds. Yet these objects executed these impossible turns without producing a single sonic boom, without exhibiting any visible means of propulsion, and without generating any thermal exhaust. They moved as if they were a mouse cursor dragging across a screen, entirely unbothered by the drag, gravity, or inertia of the physical world they were supposedly flying through. This isn't a conspiracy theory anymore. It is the official stance of the United States military that these objects operate outside the known parameters of our physical reality. You sleep soundly at night believing that gravity and momentum are universal constants, that nothing can simply opt out of the laws of physics. But these declassified radar logs prove that physics is more of a local suggestion than an absolute law. If an object can perform a Mach 10 right-angle turn without making a sound, it means the rules of reality you trust with your life can be paused, bypassed, or overwritten by whoever, or whatever, is piloting those craft. You have to ask yourself, if the sky above you operates on a completely different source code than the ground you walk on, what else is simply a simulated illusion? And if our military is quietly documenting glitches in the sky, what happens when two regular civilians figure out how to hijack the broadcast signal and inject their own terrifying message directly into your living room? Max Headroom. You're sitting alone in your dimly lit living room late at night, watching a completely normal television broadcast. Suddenly, the screen violently warps into intense static. The audio drops into a low, buzzing hum. A distorted, deeply unsettling figure wearing a grotesque rubber mask suddenly overrides the broadcast, mocking you through the screen with surreal, chaotic movements before the feed violently snaps back to normal. This actually happened during the infamous November 1987 Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion. Two completely anonymous individuals managed to successfully hijack the broadcast signals of not one, but two major television stations in Chicago. Overriding a highly secure, high-power broadcast transmission requires an astonishing level of technical sophistication, massive microwave transmitters, and exact geographical positioning. Yet, these rogue engineers managed to completely overpower the signals of WGN-TV and WTTW, replacing scheduled programming with a bizarre, homemade video feed of a man in a Max Headroom mask swatting himself with a fly swatter and mumbling distorted, cryptic phrases. Despite a massive, frantic manhunt, FCC investigators and federal authorities completely failed to identify the perpetrators. To this day, no one knows who they were, how they acquired the necessary hardware without leaving a paper trail, or what their true motive was. They essentially found a backdoor into the collective digital consciousness of millions of people, injected their own terrifying glitch, and vanished back into the void without a single trace. You assume that the screens you stare at every day are safe, secure one-way windows providing you with vetted information. But the Max Headroom hijack proves that the digital systems connecting our society are incredibly fragile and entirely susceptible to being overridden by those who understand the underlying code. If two anonymous individuals could effortlessly hijack the television signals of a major American city and disappear like ghosts, how secure is the digital infrastructure you rely on for every aspect of your modern life? You are forced to realize that the reality fed to you through your screens can be hacked, distorted, and controlled at any moment. And if a local television broadcast can be so easily compromised by rogue actors in the 1980s, you have to prepare yourself for the monumental, civilization-altering glitches that are waiting just around the corner. The MIEC events. You look up at a beautiful, clear blue sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin. It feels gentle, predictable, and entirely safe. A massive nuclear reactor hanging in the void that you trust completely to keep you alive. But deep inside the ancient wood of a Japanese cedar tree, researchers found terrifying proof that the sun is capable of catastrophic, civilization-ending glitches. In 2012, Japanese physicist Fusa Miike was casually analyzing the rings of ancient cedar trees when she stumbled across something physically impossible. She found massive, terrifying spikes of radioactive carbon-14 trapped directly inside the wood, dating precisely to the years 774 and 993 AD. These weren't normal fluctuations. They were the chemical fingerprints of cosmic radiation, blasts thousands of times more powerful than anything modern science has ever recorded. Known today as the MIEC events, these spikes prove that the sun doesn't just burn steadily. Occasionally, it violently glitches, releasing solar flares so massive they bathe the entire planet in lethal radiation. If a MIEC event happened today, it wouldn't just be a pretty light show in the sky. The sheer electromagnetic force would instantly fry every power grid on Earth, wipe out all satellite communications, and plunge modern civilization back into the Stone Age in a matter of seconds. And the most terrifying part? Astronomers have absolutely no idea what causes the sun to suddenly misfire with such devastating power, meaning the next blast could be traveling toward us right now. You build your entire life around the illusion of stability. You assume that the sun will rise tomorrow just as it did today, that the cosmic machinery powering our solar system operates flawlessly. But the Miyake events prove that the star keeping you alive is essentially a ticking bomb with a faulty fuse. Your daily routine, your internet, your financial systems, and your very survival are entirely dependent on a violently unstable reactor that has already proven it can and will malfunction. If the ultimate source of light in our reality can casually glitch and threaten all life on Earth, what happens when a glitch doesn't come from space, but manifests silently in the empty oceans below you? The outrigger anomaly. You're standing on the deck of a naval vessel, staring out across thousands of miles of flat, empty ocean in the remote South Pacific. The water is perfectly calm. The sky is completely clear. But when you look down at your navigational equipment, every single compass needle is spinning violently in circles, and your highly advanced GPS system is suddenly feeding you coordinates that suggest you are miles beneath the Earth's crust. You have just sailed directly into the outrigger anomaly, a highly localized and bizarre electromagnetic field distortion that routinely scrambles both civilian and military navigational hardware without leaving a single physical trace on the water itself. For decades, highly classified naval logs and advanced satellite anomaly tracking systems have quietly mapped deeply inconsistent magnetic variations in this specific region of the Pacific. Unlike the Bermuda Triangle, which is largely rooted in exaggerated maritime folklore, the outrigger anomaly is a strictly documented, data-driven nightmare for modern navigation. Ships passing through this exact coordinate experience a localized collapse of the Earth's magnetic field. Their instruments don't just fail. They read data that defies the laws of physics, suggesting that the spatial reality of that specific patch of ocean is fundamentally broken. It acts exactly like a dead pixel on a monitor, a tear in the physical fabric of the world where the magnetic rules governing the rest of the planet simply cease to apply. And despite countless millions spent on advanced underwater surveys, researchers have found absolutely nothing on the ocean floor to explain the immense electromagnetic interference. You navigate your world trusting that the physical laws of geography are permanent. If a map says a location exists, you believe the compass will point north and the GPS will find the satellites. But the outrigger anomaly proves that there are invisible blind spots hard-coded directly into the map of our world. It suggests that our reality has literal dead zones, areas where the underlying code of the Matrix temporarily frays, and the illusion of a solid, predictable Earth completely falls apart. If the very magnetic field that protects our planet can simply break down in the middle of the ocean, leaving no trace behind, you have to wonder what other physical rules are being quietly rewritten right under your feet. And if the ocean hides invisible glitches, what happens when someone decides to permanently embed a physical glitch directly into the pavement of your own city? Toynbee Tiles. You're walking down a busy, crowded street in a major metropolitan city, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and thousands of distracted commuters. You stop at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. You look down at your feet, and baked directly into the solid, heavy asphalt of the street is a brightly colored, cryptic linoleum tile carrying a bizarre, deeply unsettling message about resurrecting the dead on the planet Jupiter. You have just stepped on a Toynbee tile. In depth, for decades, highly classified naval logs and advanced satellite anomaly tracking systems have quietly mapped deeply inconsistent magnetic variations in this specific region of the Pacific. They act like a physical, analog virus deliberately infecting city infrastructure. The tiles always feature variations of the same surreal message. Toynbee idea in movie 2001, Resurrect Dead on planet Jupiter. But the true mystery isn't just the manic message. It is the impossible logistics of their installation. The creator managed to cut perfectly sized holes into highly trafficked municipal streets and bake these linoleum tiles into the asphalt without ever being caught by police, detected by city workers, or recorded by a single security camera. The tiles require immense heat and heavy pressure to fuse with the road, meaning whoever did this was somehow operating heavy machinery in the middle of busy intersections entirely unseen. They essentially found a blind spot in the physical surveillance matrix of modern cities, hacking the literal streets we walk on to leave behind a permanent, unexplainable physical glitch. You assume that the urban environments you live in are highly monitored, strictly controlled spaces. You believe that nothing happens on a city street without someone, somewhere, noticing it. But the Toynbee tiles absolutely shatter that illusion. They prove that it is entirely possible to manipulate the physical infrastructure of our world right out in the open, completely undetected by the millions of people walking by. If someone can seamlessly hack the streets of New York and Chicago to leave behind messages about Jupiter without ever being seen, it forces you to realize how little you actually perceive of the world around you. You are completely oblivious to the anomalies hiding right beneath your shoes. If you think your brain is deceiving you now, you haven't seen anything yet. The glitches we've covered today are just the surface level of a much deeper, more terrifying system. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover every mind-blowing coincidence, glitch, and paradox that proves reality is broken. I'll see you there.